The story continues with Bella and Ed heading back to school after they return from their weekend getaway to Florida. Jacob meets them in the parking lot, and he has a dire warning to deliver.
She has a right to know. She is the one the redhead wants.
So Jacob reveals that Victoria swung by over the weekend, and Bella figures out that this was the reason Ed pushed for the trip to Florida.
Alice's vision.
I was trying to protect you.
So Vicky attempted to attack Bella yet again, and her plan was so clever that it required moving Bella to the other side of the country for a whole day and a half. And that plan was apparently to run around the woods some more. I know her every move has been laughably ineffective over the last several months, and she wasn't able to get close to Bella even when all the Cullens left town, but this time it's serious, guys. At this point, the Cullens don't know about Vicky's connection to the threat in Seattle, so I have to wonder how keeping Bella in the dark was supposed to be a good idea. How could she take precautions this way? How can she know to look out or be careful if she doesn't know that she's still being hunted? It gets worse when you learn what Vicky's special vampire power is supposed to be, so this weekend getaway was a distraction at best. Ed claims that Bella doesn't need to be frightened if the Cullens are handling things behind the scenes, but Jake points out that she's better frightened than lied to. One thing I like about this scene is that it shows the screenwriter being smart by cutting a lot of waste and condensing information. The movie didn't include this, but the prior scene in the book had Jacob calling Bella at home, start to give her some ominous warning, then hang up, only to give that exact same warning the next day in front of her school. Why did he freeze up? What's wrong with using the phone? This kind of junky waste is what defines Meyer's writing style. Entire scenes are written in, even though they don't add to the story, universe, or characters. If you want to keep your audience engaged, you can't just throw every single detail of a character's daily experience at the writer like spaghetti at a wall and hope that it sticks. You know why the Indiana Jones movies show travel scenes the way they do? Because it'd be boring if we read the details about Indy taking naps on multiple plane rides at a time between plot actually happening. If a scene can be truncated or told in a better way, then you should consider editing things down to the most essential elements, sprinkling in detail to give the story an identity. This is true of books, movies, TV shows, video games, and stupid internet review shows. Sadly, the movie also cut an element I actually liked from the book. Jacob figured out how to screw with Ed's mind-reading powers by imagining himself in compromising situations with Bella. The idea repulsed Ed, and anything that annoys him makes me chuckle. Gotta give credit where it's due, but psychological warfare and telepathic trolling is kinda funny. It worked both ways though, since apparently the other wolves in the pack also had to put up with Jacob's obsession with Bella through both his thoughts and his dreams.
Maybe we can get a break from Jake's obsessive inner monologue.
Wish Bella would call. Wish Bella wouldn't call.
Maybe I should call Bella.
Maybe I should call Bella and hang up.
But the big element at play is what happened to Rachelle Lefevre, who played Vicky in the first two movies. Her story is a good example of how cutthroat and demanding Hollywood schedules can be. When filming a movie, actors will generally be given a filming window of when to be on call for work. This can be anywhere from a few days to several months, with some restrictions that last longer, like what we see in the MCU. Pre-Endgame, Robert Downey Jr. wouldn't have been able to gain an extra 200 pounds for a role because the turnaround time to lose that weight in a healthy way would take way too long and would delay any project he was involved in. Rachelle was under contract to play Vicky in this movie and stated she could take on other projects with very short shooting schedules. The problem was, she was given a 3-month filming window for Eclipse, but accepted a role in another movie called Barney's Version, a 2010 comedy starring Dustin Hoffman and Paul Giamatti. With a lineup like that, I would have bailed on Eclipse too. Her filming window for Barney's Version was only 10 days, so Rachelle thought it could work out, but multi-million-dollar projects tend to have very strict guidelines attached to them. Summit Entertainment saw this as a contract violation and booted her from the movie, replacing her with Bryce Dallas Howard. Summit later stated their decision was based on Rachelle not sharing information on this second project with them until the last minute, which, if true, is tremendously unprofessional on her part. Maybe they could have accommodated her filming schedule if she or her agent had reached out to the producer, or the director, or somebody. I may hate this movie, but I'm willing to be fair and say that Summit was not in the wrong in this one. So because Jacob and Bella haven't hung out for a long while, Bella decides to cut class and ride off with Teen Wolf.
Hold on tight.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
They head to the La Push Reservation, where the rest of the wolf pack greets Bella like the on-camera talent at a Brazzers shoot. Among the pack is Leah Clearwater, daughter of Harry, the guy who died of a heart attack in New Moon.
If you're here to torture Jacob some more, feel free to leave.
Leah was touted in the book as this major character with some long, storied history, but Meyer forgot to include her in the previous books, so she was jammed in at every possible chance. Whenever the wolves were mentioned, Bella's thoughts would often go to Leah, to try to breathe as much life into her as possible. This rushed development was made even worse by Meyer forgetting to actually have Leah involved in the story at all. She really just does one thing in the climax and is otherwise indistinguishable from any other background character, like some nameless nobody in a diner. It's another in the long, long list of show don't tell violations that you get from this series.
Fun, isn't she?
One last note is that Leah is also the only known woman who can transform into a wolf, something which is normally reserved for men. And before you ask, no, her being the only female wolf is never questioned, explored, and it doesn't affect the universe or her character in any way. At best, it's speculated about, but only in the book. Not that that stopped the designers who were working on the movie. The visual effects team wanted to make sure that Leah stood out while they were in their wolf forms. All the wolves got different fur and markings to make them individuals, which is a good design choice, but the effects team seemed a little too invested in Leah.
Leia is our female wolf, so we wanted to make like a cool, sexy wolf that had a non-guy presence.
So the visual designers are furries. Awesome! Joking aside though, the design and special effects team did put in a lot of work, pushing graphical boundaries to make the wolf stand out as best as possible.
I think even King Kong only had 4 or 5 million hairs on it, and we were able to get almost 20.
Although that seems to have been an utter waste of effort because good luck remembering what any of them look like. Sam and Jacob are the easiest to identify because they have the easiest designs and they stand out from the pack more than anyone else. No one else has enough character to even remember their names. Just like the human characters, the extra wolves are there to fill up space. But the real point of the scene, and also the reason Leah was only now introduced, was to discuss the concept of imprinting. You see, Leah is also the ex-girlfriend of Sam, the pack leader.
So Sam dumped Leah for Emily?
No, it wasn't like that. Sam hates himself for hurting Leah. But Emily was the one.
I smell a retcon! One of the bigger controversies of the Twilight series, aside from the glitter pixies, was the concept of imprinting, where one of the wolves sees someone they're meant to be with and instantly grow attached to them, which eventually results in romantic love.
Imprinting on someone is like when you see her. Everything changes. All of a sudden, it's not gravity holding you to the planet. It's her.
In the fourth book, Jacob eventually falls in love with Bella's dead-eyed monster baby, which has terrible, terrible implications. But it seems that Meyer was aware of the controversy this would cause because she discussed it in this book. Jacob isn't the only wolf putting out Onision vibes. Another member of the tribe named Quill fell in love with a 2-year-old, and the tribe was rather alarmed by it, because it was creepy. I'm willing to show good faith and assume Meyer didn't mean it this way, but this simple notion, as it's explained in the book, has direct parallels to grooming a child. Now, there is a reason Meyer went through with this. Sort of. She was aiming for more of a destined soulmates idea, but that doesn't explain why children are involved. I would explain this in further detail, except we're still under quarantine as I'm filming this, and I don't have enough bleach to clean both my house and my eyeballs. Expect a 10-minute diatribe when I go after this in Breaking Dawn. So Bella and Jake keep talking, and they eventually arrive at that inevitable question all high schoolers ask. What are you gonna do after graduation?
Graduation.
You knew this was gonna happen.
Not in a month.
Jacob is a bit perturbed by Bella's announcement that her summer plans include dying and mutating into a vampire.
I decided this, not him.
Bella, they're not even alive.
This was one of the latter elements from the book, though not without cause. Bella wavered in her decision to die and be with Edward as an unholy monster. This is something that annoyed Jacob to no end.
I mean, not before you've even lived. Or before I could.
And so, this begins Jacob's escapades to sabotage Bella and Ed's relationship, which spoils his friendship with the cardboard protagonist.
It makes me sick. Better you really be dead than one of them.
But we leave this emotional dead end to see another scene that wasn't in the book. Some creepy boy sneaking around Bella's room and sniffing her clothes. Remember Riley, the boy who didn't live? Well, he's looking for clues to help hunt Bella, and that means sniffing all of her things. Her shirt, her room, her dad. And this wasn't something she discovered until much later when she realized some of her clothes had been stolen. Again, props to the movie for remembering that show don't tell is a thing. Bella's in need of protection, and between watching Bella, watching Charlie, hunting Vicky, and hunting this new serial sniffer, the Cullens find themselves a little overloaded. So they need to ask for help.
Whoever it was, he left his stink behind. It'll be hard to miss when we cross it again.
Since the wolves are telepathically linked, they all now have Riley's scent, because that's how that works, and can help out. But Ed doesn't like the arrangement.
Alright, we're done here.
No, you're done here.
Stop! Let go! I'm tired of this. From now on, I'm Switzerland, okay?
Full of holes? Oh, come on! As part of Operation Protect the Protag, Bella gets round-the-clock protection from both vampires and wolves, and when Ed needs to go away to hunt, she gets to stay with Jacob on the reservation. And that means it's party time!
We're going to a party tonight.
And by party, he means tribal council meeting, because there's no better aphrodisiac than parliamentary bureaucracy. But it's not really a council meeting, it's an excuse for an exposition dump. See, because so many members of the tribe are mutating into wolves, the elders thought it would be a good idea for everyone to hear the history of the tribe and where the ability to transform came from. And this tedious backstory comes at you with all the energy of a 1950s after-school public service announcement. I'm gonna do my best to truncate as much as I can, but I'm still cutting out a lot of extraneous blathering. First though, a correction of sorts. I've called these guys werewolves before, since that's what the characters, Bella, and the internet called them in New Moon. Turns out that's actually wrong. I assumed Meyer was taking some creative liberties with her wolves, allowing them to transform without any moonlight. Turns out, no, they got retconned, so now they're technically just shapeshifters. This distinction was never made clear in New Moon when they were introduced, so let this serve as a lesson for how important storyboarding your series can be.
The Quileutes have been a small tribe from the beginning, but we've always had magic in our blood.
This distinction is also never specifically pointed out, it's just kind of there. So, a long time ago, some members of the tribe came across a random vampire and saw that he had killed some of their friends. This leads to some very convincing anger from our extra here. He and a buddy just randomly turn into wolves and kill the vampire. So, does anyone want to explain how he transformed in the first place? Magic blood, I get it, fine, but that's not an answer. How did he get the magic blood, and why did it turn him into a wolf? You're answering a mystery with another mystery, one which never goes anywhere. Keep in mind, this is a tribal origin story, but this brand new magic system is presented so suddenly that it comes across as parody.
How did card games destroy the world?
Well, I was not actually there, but I heard that somebody played a card game, and then boom! End of the world.
So the wolves tore the vampire apart and set him on fire. But that's not where the story ends.
They lived in fear that the cold man was not alone. And they were right.
Awful as the movie is, these terrible screen takes make me laugh. I can't help but wonder if the director didn't care because he knew no matter what they did, the movie was gonna make bank. This entire production feels like everyone took a shot of Ambien before they got to work. So, this vampire lady starts slaughtering the village out of revenge when the chief transforms and attacks, but he's outmatched. So one of his wives helps him out.
Taha Aki's third wife could see that he would lose. The third wife was no magical being, no special powers but one. Courage.
The chief's third wife, who becomes a sort of not really significant role model for Bella later, stabs herself in the gut, forgetting that blood can also be found in other parts of the body. She does this so that her blood will distract the vampire and Taha Aki can kill the monster. I get that, but why not go for a less lethal wound? You can still get a fair amount of blood if you just cut open a palm. Also, how does this little bit of blood distract the vampire lady? Yes, vampires have strong senses of smell and are drawn to blood, but she's already killed a good chunk of the town. How much blood did they spill out? Why isn't that distracting her or masking the third wife's blood? Or is the movie telling me that through all of this carnage, the vampire lady didn't make that much of a mess? Well, at least she's a considerate villain and goes on an easily cleaned rampage. And they've had the potential to transform into wolves ever since.
Our magic awakens when they're near.
Well, except for when they met the Cullens face to face all those years ago and they made the treaty. Oh, and again when the Cullens had to leave, then came back decades later. Consistency? What's that taste like? The movie condenses the backstory into only a few minutes, which would be fine, except it doesn't really answer any questions. It just introduces the idea of the third wife to Bella so she can copy it later in the semi-climax. The book did explain where the power to transform came from, but it went into so much detail that I felt like I was studying for a history exam. And not even an interesting period of history, more like something obscure like the history of canning fish. Oh, and of course, it was nothing like the stories from the actual Quileute Tribe. Yes, for those who didn't know, the Quileute Tribe is a real community located in La Push, Washington. If you look at actual legends among the real Quileutes, you'll see that they do claim to come from wolves. A lot of that is thanks to a being known as Quileute, the Changer. The short version is, Quileute was charged with improving the world where he could, and one way he tried was by turning wolves into people, and those people became the Quileute Tribe. If you want to learn more, there's a lecture I found by Quileute elder Chris Morganroth. He doesn't mind the Twilight series, but isn't crazy about it either.
The only thing that I didn't care for it was she didn't get permission from the Quileute Tribe, where she got her information from on the website for the Quileute Tribe. And she saw the wolves and began to take advantage of the stories that were in there, and because she wanted to depict the werewolf. And of course, none of my people are werewolves.
What's bizarre is there is a pattern between all the book's major backstory exposition dumps, and yeah, there are more of them. They can all be broken into two halves. The first half, where a single element is introduced, then a more colorful story that actually uses it in the second half. And I guess because it's this nebulous, mystical background that allows the tribe members to transform, the werewolf label doesn't work as well as shapeshifters. That or the Quileutes take their personas very seriously. Of course, if this series doesn't really have vampires fighting werewolves, like what we've seen in other series like Underworld, then why include wolves at all? Meyer got the idea to set the series in Forks because of how rainy and cloudy it often was, and it is close to where the Quileute Tribe is located, so the inclusion of the wolves feels more like opportunistic happenstance rather than narrative cohesion. Hey Meyer! Forks also has a vibrant lumber industry. You want to include a lumberjack in this little love connection?
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
And this might be a good time to mention another confusing detail about the wolves: their nudity. Not like that! An element that the movie dropped completely was the question about wolf clothing. When they transform, they run around completely nude. Or do they? In my New Moon review, I asked how the wolves avoid nudity when they change back into humans. I suggested that maybe they tie pants around their necks, or they have shorts scattered about the woods. Well, the book does have an answer for this, and it is far dumber than what I just listed. The wolves all have these little bags stuffed with clothes that they tie to their legs. That way, when they turn back into humans, they have clothes right there at the ready. This would risk being a major hindrance when fighting, or even just running through the woods. Strings could snag on something while running, and they would look stupid as hell walking around as humans with bags arbitrarily tied to their legs. How is Meyer this inept as a writer? The better solution is to not even try to answer it! Or if clothes really were necessary, you know what would have been a better option? Putting the werewolves in stretchy kilts. It would stay with them in human and wolf forms, and give them a combat advantage because their enemies would be confused for a few seconds.
You fucking touch me, you push prick!
But it's not all bad. It turns out that the real Quileutes did benefit from Twilight, even if it wasn't intentional. Are you all sitting down? Because I'm about to earnestly compliment these horrible books. After the series started climbing in popularity, the Quileutes saw an increase in tourism from fans, which did quite a lot for them financially.
But we start getting younger tourists, and they're like, oh, well, where's Emily's house? And do you know where Jacob's? And I was like...
Additionally, in 2012, the added attention helped the tribe petition Congress to settle a border dispute they had been fighting for more than 50 years. Former President Obama himself signed H.R. 1162, granting the Quileutes an additional 785 acres of territory. This allowed them to relocate several important buildings, like their school, elder center, and several houses, away from a tsunami zone and keep members of the tribe safer. Plus, the Quileutes still play around with the association to Twilight to this day, like what their official website said during the 2020 lockdowns. Once it's deemed safe to reopen again, we will welcome all visitors back to our lands, except the Cullens. Hats off to them, that one's cute. There, I paid Twilight an actual, genuine compliment. It wasn't so bad, was it? Oh, god damn it!